I'm Patrick Lancaster. We've just arrived in Smithers, British Columbia, in northwestern Canada. And we're moving on from documenting the political situation in Canada with some separatism, accused treason of the so-called separatists, the financial sector, and now we're moving into the infrastructure. We're going to be hopefully looking at the oil infrastructure, the mining infrastructure, and much more. But today we're meeting a friend of the channel, Craig Parry, and he's going to be showing us a bit of his company here, Vizsla Copper in northern Canada, and how the financial and economical and political situation between the US and Canada is affecting the situation here, and all the information in between that we can get for you, because we show you what we see here on the ground. So let's like, share, subscribe. We've got a lot more to come. Please stick with us.
The world was on fire, no one could save me but you. It's strange what desire will make foolish people do.
Hello, Craig.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
A bit chilly out here.
Yeah, a little bit, but the view, I mean, amazing.
Oh, yeah. Getting cold.
All right, so we've met up with our friend of the channel, Craig Parry, and we're going to be headed to get some information. Can you maybe tell us what the plan is and what we're going to be seeing?
So we've got a jam-packed couple of days. We're going to drive down to Houston, where we've got our camp at the moment, and check out the core shed, see some of the gear, the core coming out of the ground, and look over the core box to see what sort of mineralisation we've got there in the current drill program. I think we'll also look at some of the other core from the discovery holes and the drilling we did last year at Thera, where we've made this big discovery. And then back to Smithers tonight, and then taking a chopper down to site to the drill rigs. We've got 2 rigs turning, so we'll go and check out those. And then we've got one of the rigs on the Thera discovery, so hopefully there's some nice looking core coming out of the ground there. And then we've got one other rig out testing new targets, and they're on our Camp Lake target at the moment, so I'm excited to see what's coming out of the ground at Camp Lake at the moment. And then that'll be it. We'll have plenty of time on the ground over there tomorrow around the rigs and just getting the lay of the land. It's a beautiful neck of the woods. I'm so excited to get down there.
All right, great. Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Our 8:30 departure, and you guys will fly down to the drill sites, and we've got a truck that's going to be left down there for you, and we got a map for Craig so he doesn't get lost, and so you can find the drill sites, find the access trails, and yeah, Copper Pond's probably covered in snow, so that's a bit of a shame because there's copper sticking out of the ground there, would be good to look at, but that's just yeah, the way it is in the wintertime.
Does X mark the spot on the map? Literally.
Yes.
Right. It's like a hand-drawn.
Yeah.
So to be clear, it's a helicopter in the morning to trucks, and then beyond that, another excursion to the actual site itself.
Yeah, but that's real quick. The landing spot is right close to the drill sites.
Okay.
So it's like a 10 or 15 minute drive at the most.
Gotcha. Any snowmobiles, or is the actually normal trucks?
Yeah, just trucks. Yeah.
Okay,
There's
gotcha.
some UTVs, ATVs, that kind of thing out there, but I think you'll just be in a truck.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Steve Blower, Senior Vice President of Exploration for Vizsla Copper.
Yeah, and that's another thing I guess we should all discuss. Everybody's fine with crossing over faces in each other's photos and videos?
I'll just
Okay.
try not to speak.
No, if you're up, I know some people are sensitive, with cross channels and whatnot. So if everybody's good for it,
I'm a little camera shy. I don't like to be in the video.
And Steve, you said your title is what exactly again?
Senior Vice President of Exploration.
And you do not only copper, as far as I understand, correct?
Yeah, it's true. So, there are a number of companies in the Inventa group, and I'm involved in certainly the uranium exploration company. Also, I'm the chairman of COSA Resources.
Okay. So uranium, that's quite a jump from copper, or is it similar? Maybe you can explain the differences.
It's just another metal, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't think it's that big of a jump. Yeah.
All right. And as I understand, you made one of the biggest discoveries in the world. Is that true?
No, that might have been Craig exaggerating a bit, but it wasn't my discovery. I was part of a team that made the discovery. That was for ISO Energy. That was the Hurricane uranium deposit in Saskatchewan. And it is one of the highest grade deposits in the world, for sure. We still have yet to see how big it's going to be. It's still being drilled off. So. Yeah.
So, and when you're dealing with uranium, do you what is the risk of radiation poisoning, or how does that affect the work?
Yeah, naturally occurring uranium minerals are not all of that toxic. It's quite benign, actually, and we can measure the radioactivity very easily. So we just monitor a person's exposure and make sure we keep within Health Canada guidelines, and it's quite safe.
And I've also heard in Africa there was a uranium mine that actually naturally turned into a reactor. Is that
right? Yeah, correct. Yeah, a deposit called Oklo in Gabon, back over 1 billion years ago, it actually went critical, and so there was a naturally occurring uranium reactor in the ground. That's correct.
And do you know how that? How can that happen? Could it happen again somewhere, or is it just a 1 in a trillion?
I'm not the right guy to answer that question.
Okay, gotcha.
I understand it was a specific set of circumstances that came together at the right time that allowed that to happen, and I think it's highly unlikely that it would ever happen again.
So it wasn't aliens that did it.
I think that's correct.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right, and so this is our next stop, and then we're off to the...
This is the hotel where we will stay tonight, where we'll have dinner tonight, and then we'll go off to the core shack after we drop some bags off here.
So now, Steve, we're headed to the core station, yeah? Mm-hmm. And what exactly is that?
That's just a place where we process the drill core. So the drillers bring it up out of the ground, they transport it to our, what we call the core shack, and we lay it out on benches so it can be described geologically, divided up into sample intervals, and then we split the core so that half can go to the assay lab and half stays as a library of what we've drilled.
So this, where we're going to be going, the drill station tomorrow, or the drill site tomorrow, it's not actually a mine, correct?
Correct. It's just an exploration site, yeah. Yeah.
And will it become a mine, or?
If we're successful, it will. It depends on whether we can find enough tons of copper mineralization at a high enough grade to be able to be a mine.
So prospecting, basically.
Yeah. Yep. We're exploring. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Gotcha. So, how do you know to drill or explore in that particular location?
Yeah. So, it starts with the geology, right? We like the geology. We know that those rocks can sometimes be quite well mineralized with copper, and so it's all about us getting out onto the ground and doing some prospecting, doing some mapping, finding some signs that there is some copper mineralization nearby. And so we found a lot of those signs in this particular area, did some follow-up work with some geochemical surveying, some geophysical surveying, and then realized that we had a strong drill target, and so that's what we drilled with our first program last year. That was successful. We intersected quite a bit of copper mineralization, so we're following up now with a second program.
Okay, great. And what is the normal time frame between first exploration and mine, if everything goes correct?
Yeah, it's typically 10 to 12 years, honestly.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
It takes a while. Yeah.
And you guys as a company, does the whole time it stay with you, or does it kind of change hands, like one company does exploration and then later another company mines it, or how does that work?
Yeah, it can go both ways. You know, the company that actually finds the mineralization can develop it into a mine if they have the wherewithal to do that, or sometimes they are sold to larger companies that are producing mining companies. Yeah. But one unique thing about the Inventa Group is that we always take the strategy that we will go down the road to build it ourselves.
Okay. Cool.
So it kind of leaves you with more options than if you just decide that you're going to hang a for sale sign and sell it to a bigger company.
Okay, and the Inventa Group, that includes Vizsla Copper Corp, Vizsla Silver Corp, and others, or just those two?
Others also, yeah. Kosa Uranium is obviously a uranium exploration company that I'm involved with. There are a few others also in the mix. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. When you're doing the exploration and the drills and everything, does ever a time come when you discover something you weren't expecting? Like maybe you were expecting copper, but you find gold or something like this?
Yeah, I think occasionally that happens. Yeah. I think it's fairly rare because you're usually quite focused on a specific geology that is just right for that particular mineral that you're looking for.
Okay.
But yeah, occasionally that happens. You bet. You can have gold deposits occurring in areas that are prospective for copper. That's a really good example. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So in like this area, there's gold and copper,
It's
more or
true.
less.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So that over there is what exactly?
That is what remains of one of two very large sawmills in the area.
And what happened to those?
I don't know. At the core shack.
All right.
All of these strapped bundles here are drill core drilled by others, not by us. Others that have used this facility.
So basically there's like several locations that are prospected here, and it just so happens that this time you're here at this core shack.
Yep.
You know, it's like a rental almost.
Yep. Correct. Yeah.
Gotcha. And this kind of setup is normal for prospecting and exploration.
Yeah, I mean, typically companies have their own, but it just so happened that this was available and it was going to work well logistically for us to use this one. So, yeah. So we decided to go that route.
All right. Nice.
We've got bags of samples that are ready to go. They'll be heading out tomorrow. Yeah. So that's core that's been cut and processed and ready to go. This is how it arrives to us in that whole core form. Right? All completely round. And then this core has been already described and divided up into sample intervals, which is what these little tags mean here. And so geologically we described it, highlighted all of the significant points about it, estimated the amount of mineralization in it, and then it comes out here and it's ready to be split And in fact, we saw this core with a diamond saw, longitudinally, every inch of core. And so that's what's over by Craig. This pallet's been done already over here, so you can see it's split in half.
You can start to see a bit of copper mineralisation there, some chalcopyrite, that quartz veining.
Yeah. And so the half that's missing there has now been put into those bags there, and is going to go to the assay lab for analytical work.
Mm-hmm.
This is a Camp Lake.
So that's each of these holes costs us about $150,000. At this project we want to do about 16 holes. So that gives you an indication of the budget, but I think this year we'll probably do about $30 million worth of drilling across the company. And you hope it has copper, and the fact that that's got a little bit is a good sign. Well, you can see some pyrite there and some alteration in that porphyritic looking rock. This is the first hole I've seen from this target, so this is pretty exciting news that it looks like a porphyry system.
This is a really good result for us.
Nice.
And besides being the CEO, you're a geologist by profession as well, yes?
Yep. I've done 30 years now of geological exploration and geology around the world in about 70 different countries. This is the first porphyry I've been involved in the discovery of. Steve's found a few.
That's not true. That is not true.
And this is, the bulk of the world's copper production comes from these sorts of rocks. So this is what we're looking for. So this is very exciting.
The world was on fire, no one could save me but you. It's strange what desire will make foolish people do.
So it gets processed back in the shack here that we haven't even gotten into yet because we've been too busy looking at everything outside. And the core gets divided up into sample intervals, and then it's brought out here, and Braden runs it through the saw to split it in half longitudinally. Half goes back into the box as a record of what we've drilled, so that will stay permanently so that we can always go back to it and refer to it. And the other half gets bagged up and goes to the assay lab. So we can find out how much copper, how much moly, how much gold, how much silver is in it. Yeah. It's just that simple. It's not that simple when it's 20 below. He typically spends his first hour trying to thaw things out and get everything going. Maybe even more than an hour sometimes.
Maybe we could see a core getting cut?
Sure, it's loud as hell, but yes, absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah. Can you show them?
And it's good looking stuff. Look at that. That's all. That grey is all molybdenum, moly, which is mission critical for so many businesses, particularly oil and gas.
Say that again, Craig.
Molybdenum is mission. That grey stuff there is moly, and it's a very high value metal. It's I think 6 times the price of copper at the moment.
Oh.
And critical particularly for oil and gas drilling and lubricants. These are classic porphyritic rock textures here. You've got veining, all this quartz veining through it, and the porphyry are these big crystals in a finer background, which is what you're looking for.
And here we can hear the actual cutting of the core samples themselves inside this shack. So let's have a look at how he's cutting.
Some nice sparkly pyrite there. There'll be a little bit of copper in that, not too much.
Pyrite, that's called like fool's gold, yeah?
That's right.
Okay. Okay.
So what Rob is doing is he is geoteching the core. We need to know how much core recovery is in the box to give us an indication of, how well the drilling is going, how fractured the core is, core strength. So he's going through and making sure we have the sort of more geotechnical type of information prior to the core being logged by the geologist.
Okay. Is there any areas that you can actually see, like the copper exposed?
Mostly right here, we're probably seeing, CPY. There you go. Jimmy has identified very fine chalcopyrite in these veins. Chalcopyrite being the copper-bearing sulfide mineral. Doesn't show up very well on film.
Okay. But it's there.
But it's there.
All right.
You know, you're obviously you're not going to know your percentages or your grades until you get the assays back. So right now, what we're doing is we're going through and using our hand lenses to get a sort of visual estimation of how much chalcopyrite is in there. You know,
Okay.
to hopefully help us out with our grade estimation.
All right. Thank you very much.
You are very welcome.
What is this back here?
So this is Jimmy. What do we got here? This is just our office space. So our managers and stuff to take care of on the side. So kind of hang out in here, and we've got some monitors set up and printers.
Okay. Computer side of it, yeah? Gotcha. What is this doing?
So this has come out of the ground. That project, 50 kilometres that way. The team's brought it up. They've marked it all up. They've cut the core now. It's been sampled, so those assays are the bags that you saw outside. So that's off to the lab to be assayed. Multi-element assay, we assay for, I think, a suite of about 30 odd elements. Because you never know what you're going to get as well. So whilst we're looking for copper, molybdenum, and silver here, you might find other things going on as well. And so you wet the core down so you get a better view of the core, because of course if you look at the describe it, you can't really tell much from that. But if you wet it, so then we've taken that, and this is on that theory discovery that we made last year. So this is the first drill hole this year, and I think we're drilling 16 holes in the area. We've got one rig drilling the known deposit, one more rig out testing other targets. But this is fantastic. This is the deepest hole we've drilled so far. This is only about 175 metres depth, but you can start to see some beautiful mineralisation. Quartz stock working, multi-episodes, so you can see them running different directions, cutting at each other off. And what that means is that mineralisation system has been pumping fluid up through cracks, making cracks itself, and that's where that mineralisation gets deposited. This excites me a little bit because it's got, you've got pyrite, but also a lot of chalcopyrite started disseminated across the whole rock. My guess would be that that's well north of the percent copper, so that's really what you want to see. So I think that again, another beautiful drill hole that's very well mineralised. So I'm thrilled for that.
And you're seeing all the different minerals, and those different minerals are indications of the copper. So you're not actually seeing the copper, but you're just seeing the indications.
Some of the indications, although if you look at, let's pick one of these bits up here. I'll just go back down. So some of that's pyrite, but you can see the more yellow mineralisation there, those yellow sulfides. So you can see white sulfur, but then there's yellow sulfides everywhere. That's copper-rich sulfide, so that's chalcopyrite. So that's the mineralisation. So what happens then if this becomes a mine? You bulk dig that out, you crush, grind, it goes into a ball mill, that goes into a flotation circuit, and all of this sulfide floats to the sort of top of that and is extracted in a concentrate. And so that's the broad process. So here we're going from grassroots, early stage exploration discovery. Now we're drilling out the deposit to understand the deposit, get a feel for the scale, get a feel for the grade, and then that goes into all of the future mine plan, ensuring the project's economical.
Okay, gotcha. So yeah, we've been able to see quite a bit of the physical workings of the the shack here, but as far as your, the work of the company overall and the country overall, the past tariffs and the interaction in the political sphere, both of the world and between the United States and Canada, how much has that affected your business?
Tariffs not so bad at the moment, and I think, if you look at copper demand globally, it's become very, very scarce because of some higher copper prices. I think what happens with tariffs, particularly for the US is going to be very desperate, very short on copper supply. So we're going to have to find new sources of copper. It's about 1,000 kilometres from the US border here, great access to the US. Tariffs on copper out of Canada or the US doesn't make a lot of sense to me because at the moment the US doesn't have enough internal supply of copper. It's a net importer of copper. Now that could change. Vizsla Copper will try to help with that because we've got our Palmer project up there in Alaska that will be another significant internal supply source of copper to the US. So at the moment we haven't, because we're not in production, we haven't suffered any of the effects of these tariffs. But certainly if the demand for copper over the next 15 years, globally will be as much copper as has been used for the preceding 10,000 years. So we've got to find a lot more of these. For argument's sake, if this became a mine, it's a big porphyry system. It could be a very, very big mine, but a big mine in the copper space these days is 200,000 tonnes of copper. Now, BHP forecasts that by 2035, we need an extra 9 million tonnes per annum of copper production. Well, a project like this might do 100 to 200,000 of production. So we need, in essence, another 80 or 90 of these projects and discoveries right now that can be brought on into production and development if we're to meet the demand that's growing, particularly with data centres, photovoltaics, the redevelopment of a lot of electrical grids around the world. We're going to need so many more of these things.
Okay. Interesting. And also, from what I understand, something that affects business in Canada is the different regions or provinces of Canada supporting each other somewhat, with the more rich provinces putting money into others. Does that affect a business like yours, or is that more on the governmental level?
More on the governmental level. We do, there are different regulations and laws across the country. British Columbia, for example, here has some of the strictest environmental and First Nations engagement regulations on the planet. Other parts of the country aren't so onerous. But at the end of the day, we're opportunists. We go where those mineral deposits are. And if you're going to find porphyry copper deposits of great scale and potential in good jurisdictions, then you've got to come to this part of British Columbia, because that's where, in these valleys around here, that's where you've got huge amounts of these sorts of deposits. The other great places for this, of course, Peru, Chile, of course, the biggest copper producer on the planet. Nearly all of Chile's copper production, serious copper production, comes from these sorts of rocks, these sorts of deposits. And here, I think, in British Columbia particularly, it hasn't been as well explored as some other parts of the world. The fact that we've found this, this era deposit is clearly shaping up to be something pretty special. We found this in our crop. We walked across the ground. Hundreds of people must have walked across it in the past, perhaps not too many geologists. But we found this outcropping out of the ground. And so they're still out there to be found. But you've got to have a regulatory framework and then a market framework, market support to fund this type of exploration, because it's not cheap. This whole 600 metres, I think we're going to, that's nearly a $200,000 hole.
You're going to go down 600 metres.
600 metres. So here we're down 180 metres. I think we saw a box outside that was at 608 metres. So you got to do $150,000 to $200,000 per drill hole. I think to get a project like this to the stage where you can complete studies and go into development probably means 100 to 200 of these holes. So the numbers add up pretty quickly. You're talking about drilling $50 to $100 million of drill work before you know what you've got, before you know the project. So it's a high risk business. It's a difficult business, particularly given regulatory frameworks around the world and how hard governments make it not only to develop projects. It's the timeline from, if you go back to the 90s, you could potentially take a project like this from discovery into production in 5 to 10 years. Now that's typically 15 to 20 years. So to be able to keep up with that demand that we talked about there before of an extra 9 million tonnes of metal a year, I can't see, given the lack of exploration, the lack of study work, and then the difficulty around permitting these days, I just can't see how we're going to keep up with the demand that's coming. And so hence I think we're going to see some extraordinarily high copper prices, and that's why we're doing this. We love the exploration business, and very rewarding, but copper, I think, is going to be a very bright spot in the market over the next 10 to 20 years. I think we'll see $20 to $30 per pound of copper. Of course, in the last couple of months, we've seen the silver price go from $30 to $130, back to $75 now. So there's bumps along the way. The copper price is performing well, up around $60 now. But I think over the next 5 years, you'll see the copper market go through the same thing that we've seen the silver market go through in the last year or so. And the silver price went up 5x. That's what's going to happen with copper. Here we've got a fabulous new copper project emerging. I think it bodes very, very well for our shareholders.
Okay. And for your shareholders, you have several different companies under one group, correct? Can you please explain that?
Yeah, so our group company is called Inventor Capital. Mike Connett, Simon Smirlik, Mahesh Manigi, and my partners there. We've got about 8 companies at the moment. Vizsla Silver, of course, is focused on the Panuco, world-class Panuco silver project, which will be, once in production, probably the biggest silver mine on the planet. We have Vizsla Royalty that owns a royalty over that silver project. We've got Vizsla Copper, my baby, my passion. I love copper exploration. You look around here, you look at what you've got, your camera setup. None of this works. Humanity doesn't work without copper. And so we need more of it. And I'm happy that we're going to be supplying the world some more coming from this project one day. We also love uranium. We've got a uranium business that Steve here with us is the chairman of. COSA Resources, exploring in Saskatchewan. We've got Corcel, we're exploring for these sorts of deposits down in Arizona in the US. So a whole slew of companies that we're doing. Targa is another of our companies. Targa Exploration, TEX is the ticker listed on the Vancouver Stock Exchange. The Toronto Stock Exchange. Targa, we've just made a virgin gold discovery in Quebec that's quite exciting. So, we've got a series of exploration companies. What we really want to do is take projects where they warrant our investment and our effort, take them from this early stage of exploration, discovery and exploration, and take them on into production and build serious mining businesses.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Well, definitely. Thank you very much for showing us this all today. And as I understand, soon we might be able to go to the actual drill site itself the next days, yes?
We're going to get you down to the drill rig. We'll see some of this core coming out of the ground. I think one of those rigs is on Thera, which is the discovery we made last year. This is the first hole on Thera this year. It's looking darn good. And then we've got one rig testing. We've got 3 other outstanding targets that look like this Thera discovery. So we'll visit the rig that's out there drilling the first of those targets. And then we'll have a good look around in the general area and give you a good feel for it.
Right. And we're going to head there by helicopter, correct?
Head by helicopter.
Interesting.
And that'll give us a good overview because there's a lot of, this part of central British Columbia, there's a huge amount of porphyry copper deposits.
all sorts of mineralisation. So there's a heck of a lot to see out there. About 30 kilometres down the road from the project, there's the Huckleberry mine, which has been a past significant copper producer. Surge Copper has their Berg and Bergette deposits, which are about 20 kilometres from us. Another big porphyry system. This is 1 billion tonnes of copper mineralisation at about 0.4% copper. So we'll fly over those things as well and give you a feel for the district and check out some mining operations as well.
Nice, very nice. All right, well, thank you very much. All right, it's been great to see the situation here at the operations of the core shack of Vizsla Copper, of the inventor group, and to talk to the CEO of all these different companies, Craig Parry. He's been a friend of the channel for a long time. Appreciate the invitation out here. Learned a lot. Hope you learned something with us. We've got a lot more to come, but that's going to be in the next report. We're going to be taking a helicopter to the top of the mountain behind us and seeing how they get these cores out of the ground. And just keep getting as in-depth as possible about what's happening here, about what's happening in the financial and geopolitics of Canada and where Canada comes into the world geopolitics, and show you as much information, get as in-depth as possible. You get more information on Craig and his companies in the description below. Go check them out. And we got a lot more coming. Let's get in that helicopter.